like I'm in front of a live audience because of the
Yeah.
delay.
Well, if
So,
it's Facebook, it gives you. I mean, that gives them time to tune in.
yeah.
You know.
All right. So we are live. At least the little icon on my screen says that we're live. And this is Michael McCullough, Mac McCullough, with Willard Library, live from Burley Corners in northern Penfield Township. Always got to give that a shout out. And here with Stories at Sundown. And my guest tonight, this Stories at Sundown is dedicated or inspired by curiosity and the love of collecting. And my guest this evening knows a thing or two about both of those things. Josh Holderbaum is the operations manager at Kingman Museum. Back on the clock, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. That's kind of exciting.
Yep.
But he's his own home, Kingman Museum, which is, I would say, a veritable shrine to curiosity. It really is. And as you can see, so is Josh's basement and probably a lot of other spaces in his home where it's full of literally probably 10,000 pieces of toy figures, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to show him a little bit of that, talk a little bit about that, talk about what's going on in your story. But Josh, I think that what a lot of folks want to ask is, how do you get into something like this?
Part of it is genetic. This disease is very genetic. I got it from my mom. She's a doll collector.
Yeah.
I wasn't really specifically prompted into collecting toys, but as a kid, my mom was very big on sort of telling me to be nice to the things I had. Yeah, take care of them. Don't smash them together. Don't take them apart. Don't take them into the the bathtub with me. Don't take them outside and play with the dirt, because that's one way to have them for longer. And because of that, I ended up just having lots of toys that survived, and I enjoyed that. I liked having lots of different versions of a single character and stuff, and that just slowly took off into the descent of having so many figures.
Well, a lot of people who collect things, jokingly refer to it that, but honestly, it's just the opposite. It's like a passion, really, and again, we talked about this when we talked about doing the program about curiosity and really understanding the stories and I don't know. I mean, why do collectors collect? Do you think? Speak for all collectors.
It's for my mom and I, at least, we like to be able to show off, like, things from a certain year, or things from a certain company, or even a bunch of versions of a single character, just to be able to show the totality of what they've done and of what they've worn and what they've done. And one of the things that we both see too is, as time goes by, you see toys, dolls, action figures. They represent what's happening in the real world too.
Yeah.
So you look at dolls like Barbie. You're going to see changes in careers, changes in technology. Smartphones. There's Barbies as baristas. I look at the stuff I have. I have GI Joes that come with old rifles compared to GI Joes that come with drones now. And it's a reflection of humanity. Of what we're doing too. So it's sort of a time capsule for that, and that's really fun and really cool.
Yeah. Now, I know this because you used to work for the Enquirer, where I used to work, and I know that you started out wanting to study journalism. And how how does that serve you today? I mean, and do you see a huge departure, or is it similar?
When I went into journalism because I like to write, and that seemed like an outlet for that, as opposed to just writing books and things. I thought that would be a little more stable of a career path than doing that. Journalism would, which I was wrong, but one of the funny things is, working at the museum, a lot when I tell people I studied to be a journalist, one of their first reactions is, "Well, you want to use your skills again at some point?" And my usual reaction to that is, I am using my skills. I write labels. I do research. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a paleontologist. Everything I know about the artifacts at the museum, whether that's an animal or a rock or whatever, I had to look that up. And it's in writing those labels and in doing research on that, it gets kind of entrusted to memory. So I'm still taking information that I'm not familiar with and digesting that so I can disseminate it to the public in a way that they understand and can be educated by.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're telling stories, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost more fun to try and tell a story about something someone isn't really that familiar with. Like, for instance, at the museum, we had a dinosaur on our logo for years, and we don't have that many dinosaur fossils. We have some sauropod fossils. We don't have anything we could actually assemble. I mean, any big. We're not like, Sue at the Field Museum or anything. We don't have that. But I mean, we have like fossils of corals and stuff that predate the dinosaurs. So that's, I mean, in my mind, that's kind of even a little bit cooler because it's older than those, and it's and that's where we get Petoskey stones. So that ties into Michigan history and Michigan culture because that's our state fossil. So it's a fun challenge to try and get sort of an unsuspecting visitor interested in something that might just look like a rock to them, but it's actually so much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably one of your tools of the trade is seeing the coolness factor in whatever it is you're investigating or learning more about, because a lot of people just don't, right, until someone brings it to their attention, and that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And we actually just had that the other day. My coworker Emily and I were doing a live video from our storage, and I had pulled out a box just for the start of the video, and I opened it up, and in one of the boxes there happened to be this old flyer for Utopia Germantown wool, and it listed out all these different wools. They had like Angora wool and stuff, and I mean, yeah, it was wrapped around like a bird nest too. But honestly, that was just as cool as a bird nest because that was probably from around 1910.
Yeah.
We were estimating. So I'm showing that off to her, like, oh, this is cool. This is not what we're here for, but it's cool. It's a great distraction. But it's just as sometimes just as much fun to see how something is packed when you discover it like that.
Yeah. Well, and I've had both you and Emily on my other program, the Peeks into the Past, and it's honestly, it's kind of, I get a kick out of watching. And we got one person saying hi, and I'll finish my question there in a minute, Irv. And by the way, audience, we're talking about collecting, and we're going to look at some of Josh's collections. If you had something that you wanted to share that you collect, just chime in and make a comment on your Facebook page or on your YouTube page. We'd love to hear about it. But I get a real kick out of the two of you. We were involved on the project on the Shepherd House, and you both each your trade really came through, or your job or your work, because you share the stories behind the artifact, right? And what it says about the people that had the artifact, and what it says about the community, what it says about the history. And a lot of that, I think, would go into what you do and you talking about Kingman Museum as well. I guess that was the one you were on. You weren't on the Shepherd House. I got them confused.
Yeah.
They all run together. But you felt like you were on it, right?
I still watch the Shepherd House one, yeah.
But yeah, it's just a lot. It makes it a lot of fun, and it makes that history really come alive, or that artifact really come alive. Do you have any? I mean, I know you haven't been to the museum that long, but any somebody you inspired to go deeper and like maybe study it or pursue it, or?
Most of when we get like interns coming in, a lot of them tend to be like museum studies. Some of them will be anthropology. We've had at least one geology intern through. So a lot of them are coming in with a particular knowledge, a particular area of knowledge that when they're looking at the stuff in the collection, they probably know more about it than I do. I know some of the specific artifacts. They could probably tell me more about that. I haven't gotten any of them. I haven't gotten an anthropologist to get too excited about paleontology at this point, but I've been lucky enough to have a few interns and volunteers who come through, and they get just as excited about the stuff, even if they're not into it. They're not into researching crabs, but after a month of that, they're suddenly explaining to me all of these different crab things and asking me, does it look like this one or does it look like that one? And I'm sitting there like, you did the research. Give me a month and I'll get back to you once I do the research. It's that sort of fun that you can at least get each other excited about the artifacts you have.
Yeah. So before we go into your basement, virtually, of course, what's going on at Kingman right now?
Our staff is now back to work. At least our main office staff. Emily and I went back to work June 1st. Yeah, right after Memorial Day. So we're a few, and we're trying to stay busy over the summer. We've got education programs coming up. My coworker Emily just did camps for KCC for I think they were 8-year-olds she had in for a full week. And then we are also part of Battle Creek Public Schools' 21st Century program, so we'll be working with their summer programs this summer. We also usually work with them during the school year too, after school. In the summer, normally they would be on site at the museum. Since we aren't in the museum building, we'll be coming directly to them. That's up in a couple weeks, I think.
So how hard is? I mean, you guys are really envisioning a whole new way of working, aren't you? I mean, bringing this collection to life without the asset of having a legacy museum.
Yeah, it's a change up from last year when COVID hit. We worked from home for a while, but we still had a museum we could go to. I mean, if we needed an artifact for something, for a live stream or whatever, we could still go to the museum, get it out while no one else was there, and do a thing. Now we would have to go to a storage location and do that. So you're just working around a few more schedules, but everything's still there. Might take a little bit more time to find it, but we can still make it happen. And we are also looking for ways to be involved with other organizations in the community for either displays or exhibits. We have one in the works with the Art Center Battle Creek coming up later this summer, but we're also just looking for any other partners we can find and anything else that we can show off our stuff and educate the community and hopefully entertain the community as well, because it's both education and entertainment.
Education that's fun.
Yeah. Edutainment.
That's it.
I hear. Yeah.
So that's really cool. I mean, I'm so happy. I mean, we kind of expected, or we hoped that you'd be back, and so we're glad to see you back, and looking forward to more about that. And I'll probably have to have the boss on at some point.
Yeah.
Tina. So cool. So yeah, let's share a little bit. We'll go into the basement here.
Yeah, and I do have to preface our viewers. Normally, I mean, I would simply take the camera through my downstairs. The way I'm sitting here, I'm entombed in here. I have my laptop on a bunch of boxes in front of me. This kind of feels like being in like about the same size as a porta potty that I'm stuck in. So there's my mom joke that we want to be buried with all of our stuff, like the Egyptian pharaohs were. And I'm getting ready for this, and I'm kind of looking around like, oh, this is what that would feel like, wouldn't it? I'm between all my stuff. But so yes, we do still have photos of various shelves here.
Yeah, and here Leah Ortiz chiming in. Hi, Leah. Wow. Trekkie's out there thinking, yeah, he's in Valhalla right now looking at this.
Yeah.
So tell
And
us about it.
one of the big issues I have is my collection has grown to the point where getting a single photo that sort of illustrates the scale of it is very, very difficult. So it ends up being a lot of like single shelves, because if I zoom out too much, it's at this point it's just blobs that you really can't tell. But right here we have at least the sort of stormtrooper family from Star Wars. I did that a couple of years ago, and that made me really happy, because I was calling it I think I was calling it the Hall of Troopers or something like
Yeah.
that. But I was able to get them all together. I try to rearrange every now and then. There's always a better way to display something. Sometimes you try to do that and you're not adding or subtracting anything from the shelf, and not everything fits back on it again, which is a wonderful, wonderful frustration to have. But at least that keeps things fresh, and it makes it exciting for me too, because one of the best things you can do as a collector is just hold the stuff you have again.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you're collecting shot glasses or thimbles or whatever, if it's on display, take it down, dust it. At least hold it again. That at least lets you enjoy it again. You might.
Yeah.
There are times where I've rearranged a shelf and realized, oh, I didn't know that guy's arm moved like that. That helps quite a bit more. I didn't know this guy had that on his backpack. It's that sort of thing. And even if you have stuff in storage, pull it out. Go through it, sort it out. You might find things you want to sell. You might find things you forgot about. That's one of the best ways my mom and I have found that collectors can interact with what they have.
Yeah, and I asked you this one time before. I mean, a lot of people look at collections as like a monetary investment almost,
Yeah.
and they never take things out of the box. Clearly, you take things out of the box.
Yes, although there are things in the box above those guys. They're being covered up by the ones out of the boxes. But yes, I do have quite a few in the box. But yeah, it's I if I get something, I'm not getting it to sell it. I'm not viewing it as an investment. Investing in collectibles is generally not a good idea. You never know when something is going to tank. You never know when something's going to become popular again. So I have things that had actual limited edition numbers, like this is 200 of 1,500, and it was $5 in a bargain bin. So and also, frankly, we're in sort of a collecting age now, where most anyone who buys this stuff is buying it to collect. So as a result, more stuff is being left in the packages compared to like in the 70s and the 80s, when the original Star Wars figures came out. If those are in the packages, yeah, they're super desirable because nobody was leaving in the packages. Today, a Star Wars figure from today might not go for nearly as much because probably everybody's got it in the package.
Yeah. Well, you talked a lot when we met to talk about doing this program, about how the industry has changed so much too. I mean, the manufacturers of these things.
Yep.
And that's changed the complexion of things too. I mean, talk a little bit about that, because there is a business behind this. There is a business model.
Yeah, in the last few years, there's been a real struggle from at least the really major toy companies like Hasbro, Mattel, Spin Master, to try and walk the line between what kids and parents want and what collectors want. Because kids and parents want one thing. They want things that are simpler, they're sturdier. If it's a transformer, they want it to be easy to transform. Collectors want stuff to be more detailed and more posable, and if it's a transformer, they want it to be complicated, because sometimes some transformer fan, I don't have this, but they want a rewarding transformation, to work on. I don't want to have to look at directions and realize that, oh, I'm a man with a bachelor's degree and I still can't transform Bumblebee. But there's that divide that those companies have to face. And so I mean, Transformers is a huge focal point for that because how do you make them both complex and simple? How do you make them both appealing to kids and make the old characters that came out in the 80s? You know, some of whom transform into things that kids today don't even know about, like cassettes. You know, cassette tapes. You can't rationally market a cassette tape anymore, but they still try to.
Yeah.
And we also have the frustration of there's no Toys R Us anymore.
Right.
And KB Toys going out, there are no retailers devoted just to selling toys. So that means a lot of other retailers have to come in, like Target, Walmart, GameStop, and none of them focus entirely on toys. So the things that are exclusive to them sometimes don't show up as much, and that
Right.
causes a lot of frustration for collectors.
Yeah. I'm scrolling through these slowly. If you wanted to go back on any of them,
Nope.
this
nope,
one
you-
this one I recognize. I realized right after I said it that I called the Star Wars people Trekkies, and you didn't correct me, so that was very gracious of you.
I didn't even notice. I'm both, so it's cool.
Yeah. So what is this?
This is Ultraman. Ultraman is one of the biggest Japanese live action heroes. A lot of what I have of Ultraman, honestly, came from garage sales right here in Battle Creek, coming from Japanese families that were living here, who family members were employed at places like Denso and other stuff. Ultraman is kind of like a cross between sort of like Power Rangers meets Superman, in that he's an alien who comes to Earth. He grows to giant size. He fights various, multicolored, horrifying monsters, and he's a lot of fun. I wasn't familiar with him at all when I first started finding these figures at garage sales, but after taking Japanese in high school, I was at least fluent enough to figure out, okay, who are these guys? What do they do? And they're a lot of fun to collect. And he's kind of making a resurgence right now. There's a Ultraman animated series on Netflix, and Marvel also got the rights to his comics, so they're releasing some new Ultraman comics here in the U.S.
Neat. And this is Hulk.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep. You'll notice too, especially with the really major characters, they end up being kind of monochromatic shelves. That's one of the things my mom mentions a lot is, you put a bunch of Hulks together, it's a lot of green. You put a bunch of Spider-Man together, it's a lot of red and blue. I've got a lot of yellow and green behind me for Masters of the Universe. it just happens.
Yeah.
But that's also part of the fun, being able to show off, how a character has looked or how a character has been portrayed over the years. That's a lot of fun. So, like with Wolverine here, it's one of the few that I do sort by costume, because I had that much time on my hands, but I felt the need to sort it by costume. I don't do that with most of them, but this one I was being very particular with when I did it.
So I do want to ask how much. I mean, it looks like very meticulous, and you maintain it. I imagine you spend quite a bit of time with this.
Yeah. It depends on kind of depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll just be in the mood to actually rearrange something. Sometimes we're not. My mom is the same way. Sometimes I'll walk down here and say, "I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this," and then 5 minutes later, I turn around and walk upstairs and say, "No, screw that. I'm not tonight."
We got a question from Tom Morris. What is the most unique piece in your entire collection?
You asked me the same thing, Mac, when we talked about this, and I was trying to think. I'm actually, looking around me. This is not the winner of it, but I do have, I can't get it off the hook right now, but it's Batman Forever moisturizing body soap. In the shape of Batman. It's a little Batman bust from probably, 1995 or something. But other than that, I have, going back to the Ultraman stuff, I have a Ultraman snow cone machine. Which I found at one of those Japanese garage sales. I say snow cone. The Japanese have a different word for that, but yes, it's a crushed ice thing. the other one that stands out to me too is I have Wonder Woman safety scissors that are just in the shape of Wonder Woman for the handles, which is weird. But I saw that at the show and thought, oh yeah, that's coming home with me. That's just so insane.
Wonder Woman safety scissors. I like it.
Yeah,
and practical.
Yeah,
we all need a pair of
hard. Yes. So.
And what do we have in this shot? It was vertical, so I couldn't make it big.
Yeah, it's one of the few wide shots I got. This is of my GI Joe display. This was what I did when I was on furlough last year during COVID. Was I at least had something to do that kept me busy, which was I was going to rearrange all of my GI Joes, and that went really well. Except that I wasn't totally done by the time I came off furlough last year. So when Eltina called me to come back, I was actually fighting the urge to say, "Can you just hold off one more week? Just give me another week," because some of these rearranges you can't do it in a night. You've got to have a whole day, or, a few days set aside. So it's not something I can come back to and stop very easily.
Yeah.
Worked out really well, and it's one of the few shots that kind of shows some semblance of scale.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And there we have Batman.
Yep. Which is actually immediately to my right. I just couldn't get around there.
Yeah, we talked before going live that you need to be careful about where you move.
Yeah.
we could bury him right now.
Oh yeah, I could be. One false move, I'll be smothered by He-Man figures or something. Yeah. I think I'm in the process of inventorying all of my figures, and I can say with reasonable certainty I have the most Batmans of anyone. It's probably over 200 different Batmans, and that's a small fraction of all the Batman toys that exist. But yes, he's leading the pack easily in numbers.
So and Tom, thank you for the questions. If I can get my cursor back over onto this screen, but I can just read it. Tom asks, what advice would you give someone? There we go. Give someone who would like to start collecting anything.
I would say if you're going to start collecting, see what research you can do on it. If you're going to start picking up pieces, if it's say a particular toy line or whether that's thimbles or shot glasses, do some simple internet searches, see what else is out there. And if there is a lot of stuff out there that goes with what you want to collect, I would create what my mom and I call like a full guide, where you might just have to make your own like Word document or something, but save some pictures of stuff. Write down what you know about them. That's a good way to refer to yourself in terms of what do you have, what do you want, what don't you want. I mean, even there are going to be some things you're probably not going to want too. The one big piece of advice I would say to new collectors who are just starting out is avoid anything that has a checklist. You'll see like checklists online, for a certain toy line, like Master of the Universe or whatever. And if you're just looking at things as a checklist, eventually you're going to start defining your collection by what you don't have instead of by what you have. If you're just looking at check marks on a list, and sometimes it can take away from appreciating what you have if you're thinking about what you don't have. That's the one downside I've had to that. I've collected some things where I've used checklists, and I've had that before happen.
Yeah. I have to say that, in talking to you about this, and I think we just passed Wonder Woman, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I don't recognize this.
This is Harley Quinn.
Wait, who is this?
Harley Quinn.
Oh, okay.
This is if you've seen the new Suicide Squad movies. This is Margot Robbie's character.
Okay. I haven't.
It's okay.
But everybody's got their thing. Me, I beat up an old tractor in the shed there and get frustrated. But what I was going to say, and Tom, well, we'll talk about him a little bit. But great advice for collecting. But I have to say that, in talking to you, your attitude about this, I mean, I didn't expect anything, but you have like a really healthy attitude about it. It's just fun, but you don't seem to stress out about it. Where, as you just pointed out, it can get stressful if you put extra demands on yourself to, get everything.
Yep. And this may appear very contrary to the fact I'm a very picky buyer. I don't buy, or I don't even want a lot of the stuff in the toy aisle. I mean, that happens. If you were to follow me to Target and watch me go down the toy aisle, they'd see me thumbing my nose, frankly, a lot of that stuff, because I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah.
And even my mom used to say this about me all the time. I'd go to KB Toys and I'd be comparing things and judging, like, well, this guy's eyes painted a little more this way. He's kind of cross-eyed. I'm just trying to be a little discriminatory as I'm buying, but also knowing what I want and not wanting something that's messed up.
Yeah. And we were talking about this. I mean, Kingman Museum came about from a teenager who attended Battle Creek Central, getting curious about somebody else's, passion.
Yep.
And that curiosity turned into an enduring institution.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really almost say this about any museum, any collection.
Yeah.
It all has its origins in somebody just being passionate and curious to learn more.
Yep.
But you mentioned this, and I'll just say it out loud. I hope it's okay. But you have this kind of like dream in your head about creating a toy museum.
Yeah. It's one of the things that's hit me from having folks over to look at my displays and stuff. Is everybody gets excited about it. I mean, they're always looking at stuff, saying, "Oh, I had that when I was a kid," or my friend had that when I was a kid, or I had that and I sold it, or or I always wanted that but I never did. And it's being able to find that common ground with folks. But, because I'm into video games and action figures, I'm friends with folks who I honestly might not have met otherwise. I mean, politically or religiously or whatever. I can make those connections just by talking about Spider-Man or Wonder Woman or Black Panther or whatever.
Yeah.
Being able to share that with as many folks as I can would be great. I mean, I don't really want to just keep stuff hidden down here in my basement. It's not intended to be a man cave. I want to have as many folks in here as I can to enjoy it with me.
Yeah. You got one fan right there. Make that dream a reality. But yeah, I think that it would attract people. I mean, there are toy museums out there that do quite well, right?
Yep.
How many toy museums have you been to?
I've actually not been to any. I'm following a bunch on Facebook and hoping to get to those at some point. I say the same thing about natural history museums. That I work at a natural history museum and I need to go to other natural history museums. And I don't have the time to make it there, but I do need to. We do need to make some road trips and see what these places have in person.
Well, I think it would be a great addition to Battle Creek, or anywhere for that matter. And I really appreciate you sharing your collection with us today, Josh. I think, I guess one more thing I'm thinking about is how collecting is such a uniquely human enterprise, and it's I think it's something that it really does bind communities together.
Yeah. It's even when I meet collectors of other things, whether that's shot glasses or whatever, as a collector myself, I can still be interested in what they have. It's cool to see what they collect. We did that at the art center years ago, where we had different collectors come in who collected different things. Like one only collected things that had frogs on them, so there was this massive display of frogs and stuff. And it's cool to see that, because then you can at least ask them, hey, if you get into this, what's your favorite piece? You can have those same similar feelings as to what you have.
Yeah. Neat. Well, again, thank you so much, Josh. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun being in your basement, virtually. Maybe I'll have to come over sometime and get a closer look.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And so, next week he made a comment. Tom Batterson. He and his family run News Story Bookshop in if I get that right in
News
Marshall.
Story Community Books, I think.
That's right. News Story Community Books. Yeah, when I'm on live internet, I lose words sometimes. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that and talking about the leap of faith that is involved in starting a business, any business really, but a bookshop in today's modern age, and how he's doing that. And that's really going to be a fascinating conversation. So hope to see everybody back next week. Enjoy this beautiful weather, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
See ya.